I welcome you all once again. I'm really excited as this is the first telehealth webinar of Pakistan, where we have audience not from the metro cities but all across the nation. Uh, uh, since the webinar is about telehealth, and this is no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted medical practice and led to a surge in telemedicine visits, where you can interact with the healthcare community, can interact with the patients over telephone, over different platforms which are related to telemedicine. And if you look at several reports that have been issued globally for telehealth care, the healthcare social networks, they comment that this change is going to be permanent and that the telehealth industry will be quite an evolving one in the future to come, and an industry which is going to be about 106 billion by 2023. And obviously we know that telemedicine has been around for many years now, but the pandemic has really changed the game. Something that had been getting gradual adoption really rocketed to the forefront. The increase in the usage has been witnessed both at the level of healthcare community and at the level of patient. And when we have witnessed this change globally, I'm really proud to say that the healthcare community or healthcare physicians from Pakistan and patients both have adapted to this mode quite quickly and efficiently. And we are here today to discuss these same success stories. We have our esteemed speakers from healthcare community, and I would really like to thank Society of Obstetrician and Gynecology Pakistan and Association of Mothers and Newborn. They are our partners from the OBGY expertise, and I would like to thank them. I would also like to thank the telemedicine platforms, both international and national, who are today with us. Internationally, we have our speaker, Dr. Naila Kamal from Medret. We have Seher Kahani with us and Ola Doc with us, that have come aboard with us to share their success stories from the telemedicine platform as well. So at the beginning, there are some housekeeping announcements, and that this session has been muted centrally and the videos are disabled. But since this is we want to keep this webinar as an interactive one, and we really want to know if there are any gaps still left in the telemedicine horizon, or if you want to put your suggestions so that we combined can make it more efficient for patients and healthcare community. You can write your Q questions in the Q&A in the chat section, which is given at the bottom end. Or if you want to ask personally, you can write your name over there, and at the end of the session, we will enable your mic and you can ask the question from the expert you would like the question to be asked from. And without further ado, I would like to call my first speaker from Association of Mothers and Newborn. Can I have her profile up at the screen, please? Dr. Azra Hassan. Dr. Azra Hassan is currently working as a consultant of OBGY in a tertiary care hospital of Karachi. She has a rich and varied experience, having worked in UK, North Africa, Middle East, and Pakistan. She has a keen interest in public health, and through her work at National Committee for Maternal and Neonatal Health, she has overseen and implemented many interventions on reproductive health, including EMOC session, post-abortion care, and family planning. She works as vice president of NSC-MNH and is also the president of Association of Mothers and Newborn. She was instrumental in setting up the reproductive telehealth medicine helpline by Aman and SOGP in collaboration with UNFPA and Population Council Pakistan during COVID-19 pandemic. It is the first initiative of its kind, and the topic of her talk is also related to this, which is Aman's and SOGP's reproductive health telemedicine helpline, a timely intervention. So with this, I would give the podium to Dr. Azra. Kindly share your slides and over to you.
Thank you, Sobia. Thank you very much. And so this all happened when COVID happened in Pakistan. I suddenly, like all healthcare providers, I had to pause my clinics, and I would be home because because that is all we knew. And there were patients calling me all the time, panicky and wanting help for their issues. So I talked to, a few colleagues, especially in Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Pakistan, including Dr. Halima, who is here, Dr. Razia Kureja, who is the president, Dr. Sadia Sinpal, who works for both these platforms, Aman and SOGP. And we drew this plot of setting up a helpline. Because we knew there were many other helplines, and they were mostly catering to, family planning, and it was usually manned by the LHVs or midwives or mid-level doctor. And these kind of helplines were not being, issues were not taken to expert specialists in these kind of situations. So this is what we did. We all, cooperated with each other, SOGP, Aman, Population Council, UNFPA, and we decided to set up a telemedicine helpline to address the reproductive health needs and rights of Pakistani women in the COVID-19 pandemic. And since then, we have realized that even if, whenever the COVID pandemic fades away, this is a service which should keep on going. So we first drew up a content for this, for the course that we were to design for the doctors who would man these telephone helpline. And this included pre-pregnancy care, antenatal care, postnatal care, care during pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period in the COVID-19 context, essential newborn care, contraception, post-abortion care, subfertility, and then the common menstrual issues that we usually encounter with our patients. And there is this constant need and desire to postpone periods for young women going on holidays or Umrah or Hajj, so that kind of a demand all the time. And then increasingly, it was realized that gender-based violence, which is always an issue, had multiplied many times during the COVID-19 situation. And of course, other common conditions like vaginal discharge, urinary tract infection, lower abdominal pain, pelvic pain, etc. So we gathered as a team, and late at night, we would meet on Zoom, and we would discuss each chapter and develop its content together. And this included myself, Dr. Halima, Dr. Sadia, Dr. Mariam from Lahore, Dr. Mariam Waqas. Dr. Alina was a young doctor who was on vacations from UK, and Dr. Humaira. Our goal was to strengthen the capacity of healthcare providers to guide and provide appropriate management to women, including adolescent girls, pregnant as well as non-pregnant women and lactating mothers when they call for their reproductive health issues during the COVID-19. The training objectives was that at the end of this course that we had developed, the participants will be able to recognize the need for telemedicine in the current situation. And we had developed a series of checklists. They could use those checklists and give an appropriate response to women who would call on this helpline, and demonstrate the correct use of job aids that we gave to them and trained on it so that they could use it and give proper advice. And we also helped them to identify red flags and consult with a senior subject specialist and advise regarding appropriate next steps to take in the form of a referral to a senior consultant or to a secondary or a tertiary hospital. So we have two tiers of doctors. First is, I'm going to introduce them to you now shortly, a tier of doctors who were receiving the calls, and if they had any need to consult a senior level of doctors, the senior doctors would be the second tier and available to them to give a proper response. And the other objectives included apply principles learned to convert bedside management to website management. This was a new concept. and then record patient data. So whenever these doctors receive calls, they would have to fill up a table as to the nature of the call and how that call was disposed of, and demonstrate utilization of telehealth checklists to provide basic care, patient monitoring and evaluation, and gaining the skills and knowledge to integrate telehealth knowledge into practice. And then they should recognize the limitations also, complex legal, regulatory, and accountability issues surrounding telehealth. So first we advertised, and we didn't advertise in the main media, but basically in groups of members of Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Pakistan, usually junior and senior level specialists, and we sought applications. We shortlisted those applications and then conducted interview on Zoom. And these are the doctors who were finally selected. And these are all doctors who either have postgraduate qualifications or who have trained to give their postgraduate exam. So they are all quite senior and experienced and an expert in the fields that they give advice on. So we shortlisted 14, and during we gave them a 5-day training, and during that training, about 50% of these doctors got infected themselves with COVID. And it was really difficult to continue with that training, but finally, alhamdulillah, all of them recovered and they're fine now, and they continue to provide services. So there are 13 of them, and one had to drop out because her whole family got COVID and she was the only one who was looking after them. So these are the second-tier consultants. And I will tell you how this first and second-tier doctors coordinate with each other. So next, after these doctors were selected, we did a 5-day training, and this training was conducted on Zoom, and they were trained on all the different aspects of reproductive health. They were given a certificate and CME points, which was given by SOGP, Continuous Medical Education. Then we made a rota for the doctors trained, and they were giving services in 2-hour slots from 9 to 11, 11 to 1, 1 to 3, and 3 to 5. And there was a first on call and a second on call person if the first on call person for any reason could not provide that service. All this was set up, and then a media launch was done on 17th June. And there was quite a lot of coverage about the launch. And we were covered also on mainstream television. And this is how our system works. We have a WhatsApp group where whenever these doctors receive a call, they write a summary about it, and what advice they have given, they write on this WhatsApp group. And if any advice needs to be given, it is given by the second-tier consultants, me, Dr. Halima, Dr. Sadia, or Dr. Maryam Iqbal. So you can see there was a lot of topics on which these calls came. For example, a few calls were on pregnancy with COVID. There were a few calls on primary subfertility. There was this call on, there were many calls on family planning. So, especially this woman who was 24 years of age, and she had 4 previous sections, had 4 babies. The last one was, I think, 1 or 2 years, and she wanted a contraceptive advice. And we had a good discussion about what would be the best way to, give her contraception cover. So, long discussion, it is a learning experience for all these doctors also when they interact with senior faculty. So, I don't have time to, read all these conversations that we had with each other. And so there were calls on menstrual irregularity, on pre-pregnancy care, subfertility care, postmenopausal bleeding. And this one, then we realized that as these were audio calls, And some of our callers were not literate and they wouldn't be able to tell us what medicines they were taking. So we set up another, uh, uh, we, we bought a smartphone and told our callers to send their prescriptions or pictures or reports on that number. And whenever our doctors wrote any prescription, they would send it through this number to the caller. So this was an LHV who had called from KP, and she had given the contraceptive injection to this woman, and she thought that the woman had rubbed the injection site with stones, and she thought that it was the swelling and redness was due to the stone that was being rubbed. But we looked at the picture, we told her this looked like infection, and we gave her appropriate advice. So this is a breakdown of the calls that we had received in the initial couple of months or so. So you can see different callers. Mostly it was antenatal care and all kinds of calls. COVID-19 in pregnancy, polycystic ovarian syndrome, family planning, urinary infections, dysfunctional uterine bleeding, and a host of other calls. And every month we would have a meeting with these doctors and we would discuss the issues and the problems during these calls, and we would try to resolve the problems as they arose. So the problem now is to create awareness about the existence of this helpline. So whenever we advertised, whenever we went on television on a program, there would be a flurry of calls and we would get many calls. But after a few days, that thing died off and then we would have no calls. So the dilemma now is how to create awareness about this helpline so that we receive more and more calls and this helpline is properly utilized. So we made these flyers in English, in Urdu, in Sindhi, and on the World Contraception Day, many social activists and the people who work in NGOs, they talked about our helpline in different programs. I also went on a show to explain it. We created audio messages in Urdu, Sindhi, Gujarati, and Pashto, and advertised it. So there were transcripts and audio messages. And then we collaborated with an organization called Shirkat Ka, and they developed their own flyers in Sindhi and Urdu and went into different districts of Sindh, including Khairpur, Nasirabad, Jafrabad, Shikarpur, etc. And they distributed these flyers and held meetings with men and women in groups, and also ran tickers on cable TV in these areas about this helpline. And then when they would have these group sessions, they would call our office, and Dr. Humaira from our office spoke to the men in Sindhi, and I thought this was very innovative because otherwise it will be so difficult for a lady doctor to go and stand amongst the men in a rural area and talk to them. So I thought because of this, we had access to these remote communities and especially to men and explained to them about what this helpline is about. And Dr. Zofin Ibrahim, who is the Secretary General of Association of Mothers and Newborns, has been with us all along, and she wrote an article on this helpline on the World Population Day in Dawn. Dr. Talib Lashari, who heads the CIP unit, Costed Implementation Plan Unit of Sindh government, has been very appreciative of this helpline, and they even wrote about it in the newsletter of CIP Sindh. And they're quite interested now, and we're going to talk to them how we can collaborate more with the Sindh government. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Azra. It was surely a very innovative initiative in the times of COVID-19. Um, and I have seen quite a few activities related to it on the same while I attended a few sessions regarding the same. So with this, I would like to move towards our second talk, and our second speaker is from United Kingdom, Dr. Naila Siddiqui Kamal. I guess there is a technical hitch in the video because my video. So I'll just carry on with the introduction. So, Dr. Naila is a fellow of Royal College of Obstetrician and Gynecologist, and she has been affiliated with NHS for the past 28 years. She has several higher education qualifications, including Masters in Medical Education. She has inventor status at Imperial for her work in developing an interactive learning resources using disruptive technologies, something which we don't see in many bio profiles. She's a frequent speaker on disruptive technologies and their place in futuristic healthcare. And Dr. Naila is an entrepreneur and has established the Medret Academy, an online education hub for clinical workforce for continued professional development, and has been involved in quite a few activities related to disruptive technologies in healthcare. She's going to speak about the futuristic healthcare trainings and education and service delivery. So over to you, Dr. Naila Siddiqui Kamal.
Assalamu alaikum. Beta, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor. Can I just check that you are able to see my screen share and are able to hear me?
Yes, Dr. Naila, both the things are perfect.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So without much ado, I will get started. First of all, just to give an idea of how my presentation is going to run, I'm going to divide it into 3 sections. So in the first section, I'll talk about the role of technology in healthcare. In the second, the role of technology in fighting COVID. And then lastly, the role of education and training, and with a case study of Medret Academy. So hopefully by the end of this small talk, you'll be able to have some idea about what is the role of technology and where the world is going, and also how we have fought COVID-19 with technology, and why it is so important to have education and training in the new ways of delivering healthcare. So when we talk about technology, just to give a little bit of a brief outline for people who may, for whom this may come as a new concept, that we are really at the cusp of the 5th industrial revolution. So the first being the age of the steam engine, second being the, electricity and combustion engines, and thirdly, the digital revolution. I think I'm old enough now to say that I was present in that when the computer struck us. And the fourth being, the world of artificial intelligence, big data, internet of things, and blockchain. These are all new terminologies that are thrown around us. However, these technologies are what are driving the world's economies, whether it is healthcare or it is any other economy. And we are almost at the cusp. In fact, some places in the world have already entered the 5th industrial revolution. The difference between these industrial revolutions from before and now is the speed of change. So why am I talking as a clinician? Why am I talking on technology? The reason is it is part and parcel of what we do, how we educate ourselves, educate our future generation, and practice medicine. So gone are the days when, technology was on the side and clinicians were here. This is now amalgamated. If we really want to make the best of our, our potential and benefit populations at large. So I can see that a lot of people are doing excellent work, and they are doing it individually in smaller scale. The main thing is that instead of a drop in the ocean, we have to make it into a magnified, collaborated effort so that there is a meaningful change which is visible. So I put this here because you can see that I have been talking about this for a long time. My subspecialty is gynae oncology. I am affiliated with Imperial. I see cancer patients. But whenever I'm asked to talk about things on an international platform or in Pakistan as well, I've always been coming and talking about futuristic healthcare. The reason is that this concept needs exposure to where it is most needed. Here, I think it's a luxury. In the Western world, it's a luxury. While as in the developing economies, it is a necessity. I won't go much into the technology aspect of it, otherwise it will take a lot of my time. So I put it here. This is simply a infographic that I wanted to show that this is doable, that we have a network of infrastructure which coordinates all these efforts that are being made, so that, like my point earlier on, that it is a meaningful, visible, scalable, effort which makes big difference. I put this infographic here just to give an idea that we talk about telehealth. I'll come to that. Telehealth is one part of a wider health ecosystem, right? Health ecosystem has got many different technological, clinical, population, public health aspects. So when the ecosystem is well connected, everything will work. This infographic simply depicts that there is a patient, there is a family, there is a population, a community in the middle. Then you have the immediate stakeholders. Then each circle around is a wider stakeholder, whether it is educational body, whether it's regulatory body, whether it is social services. In UK, we talk about health and social service, because without social service, health cannot be fully, delivered. And similarly, if you're treating someone with diabetes, but you're not doing anything about the social background, then the diabetes is not really going to be, treated to the extent that you can achieve when both of these things. So in a nutshell, this is what we are talking about, that you have a smart healthcare ecosystem. And these are not concepts that people who are listening would say, which often I've heard when I first started coming to Pakistan. And, I'm very grateful to SOGP, you've always invited me. When I first started about this, in the corridors, I would get anecdotal comments that, oh, Dr. Saiba, ye to, aap wahan ki baat kar rahi hain. In literature, if you do literature search, these things have been done for rural population in the 50s and 60s in places like Australia, where there is a large outback. So they are remotely placed populations and they need to have an infrastructure. Similarly, in America, in some populations, and you'll be surprised, the underprivileged, vulnerable communities, especially the Black and ethnic minority groups, and they have used these networks, and they are called as the rural and urban healthcare systems. Now I'm coming to the second part of my talk, and which is about how the world has really come up with technology in fighting COVID. This is an infographic which I've seen, which I've just picked up, and they are all freely available on the net, so there's no copyright issue there. So remote monitoring, disease tracking and predictive analysis, healthcare screening, mental and behavioral health. Look at the number of stakeholders. These are all companies that have got telehealth portals and who are doing this. So there is a massive influx of peers who are doing the same thing. We just held a very nice webinar about 4 days ago from Medred Academy. That is one of the other things that we do. Invite experts from their specialities, from highly recognized institutions. So we did a webinar with John Hopkins about 4 days ago. And the message, and this was on public health and the efforts for COVID-19, especially focus of Pakistan, and we had a very big audience that attended. And the main thing that I took away from that was that they were working on the 5 T's, which is, you need to test, you need to trace, track, treat, teach via telehealth. So this is a big role that telehealth has played. Just to give an example of our little contribution, on the 1st of March we received, so MedRed Academy has got a consultancy arm because of our expertise in healthcare informatics, that in Caribbean, they wanted to develop an app. And this app is much before your Center for Disease and the Google and the Apple apps and the UK NHS apps. This was much before. We based it on not only the symptom checker, so this is based on artificial intelligence algorithms, risk stratification, baseline health status, and recommendations. Now, what the effort for this app was that to raise awareness and change behavior, because the reason why the story in Pakistan, like in many other places, has not changed. My mother was a gynecologist and one of the very earlier members of SOGP, and I remember tagging along with her to Jinnah, and the stories or the stories that I would hear were the same: maternal mortality, neonatal mortality. And I was reflecting on this, that why has this narrative not changed over the years? Because we have not been able to change behavior. You know, the behavior needs to change before all these, what do you call, implementations that we are bringing, these projects that we are bringing, for them to have a real meaningful impact. Now here I've got to introduce a new way of thinking. As clinicians, we do the same thing that we've been doing since, Hippocrates. We prevent disease, we make accurate diagnosis, we manage the disease, we monitor disease, we collect data, and we use it for research. This is the, part and parcel of what we do in any specialty. But now the narrative has changed. We don't talk about medicine as we used to. We talk about preventive medicine. We talk about predictive medicine. We talk about precision medicine. And why is that? Because technology has enabled us to do. The Million Genomics Project, which was launched in UK and it was closed much earlier because we managed to get the 100,000 genes. Why was that? So 100,000 genes have been volunteered by individuals, because then research can be done to trace that which individuals will be more at risk for different rare diseases or cancers. And this way we can do precision medicine, artificial intelligence. I blog as the Geeky Gynecologist on a medium called AI Med. And that is because I'm really sold on the idea of artificial intelligence, and we can have another webinar on that for those skeptics who say that the machine is taking over. That's a totally wrong concept. So here is a solution of artificial intelligence where diabetic maculopathy or the diabetic retinopathies can be identified by using AI algorithms much better than human diagnosis. Now, I have to say this, that why are we using technology? The big issue in our practice as clinicians is variability. Dr. Essen is an expert. I'm not. So what will happen is that the patients that I see may not get the benefit of the expertise that, Dr. Essen is able to provide. So how do we overcome this variability? That is through technology, that the expertise that Dr. Essen has goes into, by means of algorithms, into an AI model so that a wider population can benefit from that expertise. So this is what technology does. I put in here an example of chronic disease management, for example, for diabetic patients. So what we can do is provide, let's say I've got diabetes. I know I've got a chronic illness. I'm going to live with this. So telehealth, my doctor is sitting in their clinics. I have been given these basic Bluetooth-enabled technology devices, peripherals, so that I can do my own blood test, which is the results are Bluetoothed to the portal, go to my clinician. And that's how, this is the next level of telehealth. So we are talking about telehealth in a more advanced model. So technology-enabled care is about telehealth, telecare, telemedicine. At another forum, I'll talk about the differences. They are not synonymous terms. Telemedicine and telehealth is not a synonymous term. Anyway, here I'm giving an example of how I have been using technology. So on your right side of your screen, I'm using the Microsoft HoloLens. Here I'm using the Google Eye, which is basically it's a two-way process of connecting. This in COVID-19, when I was doing ward rounds, using my full PPE or seeing a COVID patient, I didn't want my trainees to be exposed. So by means of wearing this, I was connected to the group of trainees who were in another room away from the environment, which was COVID, and we could do their, the discussion, so that I'm protecting my cohort of doctors that when they need to come, because this is what happened. I work in a unit in London, which was declared as the epicenter for COVID in London. From one ward of COVID, we went to 8 wards of COVID. From 1 mortuary, we went to 3 mortuaries over a span of 3 weeks. So you can imagine, I was at the forefront of COVID in the last few months. And now we are seeing the second wave. So here are some examples of how telemedicine, with its advanced model, where you have peripherals, where you have devices that can really make it meaningful. And as I'm talking about education, I have to mention some very advanced examples. So here is another example of Proximie, which is a augmented reality version or solution, where you see if Dr. Asen is operating or has got the expertise, and I'm operating somewhere in a rural hospital in Sindh. I don't have that much of expertise, but there is no other way. So through this solution, Dr. Asen can really put a finger and tell me to hold my hand and tell me where to operate and where not to put my scalpel on, where to go into diathermy or where not to. So these are advanced. This needs 5G. Similarly, holoporting. This is my best example, and I'm just waiting. Well, I'll be in SOGP holoporting myself from here one day, which is, it's being used in care homes. So the doctor actually goes to the bedside in a care home far away. Is being used in Australia, is being used in America. So these are not science fiction from what was that, Star Trek, when it says beam me up, Spock, or something like that. These are things that are happening now. Here is a little example of what I've been up to. And on your right, I'm actually delivering a primary breach using Microsoft HoloLens. So I wanted to give you an example that, for example, not a primary breach, sorry, a breech delivery, because primary breach you have cesarean sections. So breech deliveries here in the UK are, you don't get that much of exposure for our trainees. So how to give them and prepare them best before they actually come across that. So simulation is this. This is the world's first humanoid. It's used, its name is Pepper. It's used in the pediatric care. I can go on in this. I think I'm going to skip this because Dr. Asen has already spoken about this. So here is another solution in telehealth, Babyscripts, where they send a mommy kit. So as soon as a woman is pregnant, a mommy kit is sent with a blood pressure app, which can be connected through Bluetooth. There is a transducer which can monitor fetal heart rate, so scans and so on and so forth. Here I have to mention that you might say this is all for the West. I belong to a think tank, which is called as REACH, and it's a key opinion leader project. We've done a project called the Wonder Project, which is women, obstetric, neonatal, something in review of women and neonatal deaths in India. And they've actually done a project in Bihar, which was equipping the healthcare visitors with these basic tablets and monitors, and connecting the various different district health units to a hospital. So it's not that these things are not done. I'm coming to the last part of my talk, my friends, and sorry if I'm going very quickly. The reason was there was a lot that I needed to deliver. Usually I have a slower speed, so in case if you think I'm going on a marathon run. So here is my last part, which is the role of MedRet Academy. So MedRet, first of all, about 2-3 years ago, I formed a company called Medred Healthcare Limited. This was basically because I used to get, like many of us, requests for educational courses and so on and so forth. So I thought, let's make it a more formal. So the recruitment education training, so RET's recruitment education training, people who want to come in UK, they wanted educational courses and so on and so forth. Anyway, so Medred Academy is a bespoke platform. We've invested in a very state-of-art platform where the purpose is that it's a global presence, clinical professional development of healthcare workforce towards. These are the very important things. Our focus is safe, ethical, effective, and evidence-based care. It is so important. Ethical and evidence-based is very important to my heart, and that is why we've got many collaborators for Pakistan. Very grateful to SOGP who given accreditation to a course which I'm going to talk about, and our local group that are managing our candidates is EduCast. EduCast approached us to bring this course. About EduCast, I've been told that they have an eDoctor program, which was very successful in COVID. They have treated 100,000 families that were in isolation or were at home in supporting them. They've been given Islamic Development Bank funding, and they are doing similar type of work like the rest of our colleagues are. And I think it's credible that Stanford has approached them, and Stanford is providing free courses for preparing their doctors, their e-doctors for COVID-19. So coming to my platform, so there are many resources which are free for access, so anyone can register and have free access. I put in a journal club where not only gynae obstetrics, it's got acute medicine, surgery, whichever, pediatrics. So any cutting edge articles that I find which I feel are very relevant, I put them. So people who are preparing exams as well, this can be very useful. So this is our course, which is 3-month course, which we've launched. The focus of this course, I'll come back to the screen, is that the focus is that these are the things that we are really focusing on: situation awareness, critical thinking, effective communication, timely decision making, working within safe boundaries, and developing the collaborative network. The reason I'm saying this is that I'm very conscious of the fact that telehealth has suddenly emerged as the new thing, in town, and everyone with a computer may think that they can hold their telehealth consultations. We have to be careful. Just like we will not give a surgical instrument in anyone's hand to operate without proper training, without proper accreditation, without proper regulation, telehealth has to be protected, or any technology. I say any technology which as clinicians we are going to be practicing, we need to work in safe boundaries. So one thing about this course is not what they can do, but also to develop their consciousness and their, kind of accountability, that what are the things that they need to rely on face-to-face or other collaborators, so that they can build a safe model of healthcare delivery where telehealth plays a role. I think that is absolutely essential, which our course is delivering. I'm happy to say we've been approached by a group in Jordan, a group in Yemen, in the war-torn areas where they want their own clinicians to be taught about this for women and children. And this can be translated into any specialty, because the purpose is to equip people with the frontline skills in order to give the best possible care. So I think I'm going to come to my last slide. I'm sorry if I've taken more time, but technology has to be embraced. We should work on accreditation, and we should work on regulation. Each individual is self-accountable first. So if we've taken a Hippocratic oath, or whichever oath you've taken as a clinician, we need to make sure that we are practicing in an ethical manner. Thank you so much, my friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naila. I'm truly amazed, and it was a splendid talk, I must say. You can find some comments about your presentation by Dr. Halima and Dr. Sara in the chat box as well. It was truly an amazing honor to listen to how telemedicine, telehealth are two different fields, and that technological enabled care can further add value to our reach to our patients. And then the one thing which touched my heart was ethical and evident practice, which you mentioned. So thank you very much, and it was an honor to have you on board with us, which will lead me to our third presenter, Dr. Sara Saeed Khurram. So from the healthcare practitioners and platform, now we are moving to purely the telemedicine healthcare platforms, which are in Pakistan. And Sara is one of the persons I cherish most because she's the co-founder and chief executive officer of Sehat Kahani. The thing which is unique to Sehat Kahani is that it is an all-female health provider network that is working to create quality healthcare solutions for communities where healthcare access, quality, affordability of healthcare is still a dream, using cost-effective ICTs-enabled solutions. So while we watched and we witnessed that the options which were presented by Dr. Naila, how can they be gradually, translated to areas like Pakistan, where the economic forum is not that developed. However, platforms like Sehat Kahani and Ola Doc are working towards that to slowly bring them into the game. So one thing is that Sara has spoken about the telemedicine and the opportunities at prominent places such as KSBL Conference 2016, Africa Summit 2017, AI Summit ITC in Karachi, and Mobile World Congress Barcelona 2019. So over to you, Sara. Dr. Sara is going to present the success story by Sehat Kahani, driving healthcare into future using telemedicine. Sara, over to you.
Thank you, Sobha. Thank you so much for having me there. I must say, I think Dr. Naila has really set the stage for my presentation. And I was really intrigued by her grasp on the subjects and how she talked about digital health. As a digital health enthusiast, it was a pleasure to listen to you, ma'am, and hoping that we can connect further. And I think as Dr. Sobia said, that what Dr. Naila has explained is the opportunities in digital health. And what I'm going to tell you is a little bit of that we've done in Pakistan already and how we can expand that in a country like Pakistan, where healthcare is such a big challenge. But yes, there's an opportunity through the massive internet penetration that we're seeing now. So Sehat Kahani, for anyone who doesn't understand Urdu, Sehat means health in Urdu and Kahani means story. Very poetically, we're trying to change the way health stories are written in Pakistan. But the mission and vision of the company is to democratize healthcare access for all. Wherever they are, whenever they need healthcare, they should find a doctor in their community, in their mobile phone, in their place of comfort. And through Sehat Kahani, which is co-founded by me and another female doctor, we are essentially tackling two major problems in Pakistan. So the first problem that really is close to my heart, being a physician myself, is that Pakistan today ranks 154th out of 195 countries in terms of accessibility to healthcare. And that's because half of our population, half of our 200 million people, never access a doctor in their lifetime. And women and children are disproportionately affected in this situation. So 38% women still deliver at home in Pakistan, and 1 in 5 children do not see their 5th birthday. And while there are many gaps in the healthcare system, and we can take another webinar to talk about them, what I believe is a major factor is Pakistan's issue of missing doctors. So being a female doctor, this is again very close to my heart, that Pakistan has a total medical workforce of 200,000 doctors, according to latest stats. And 60 and more percentage of this is made up of female doctors, which is great. a lot of social and cultural barriers or the inability to choose family over career do not practice. And then we have a huge majority of doctors who travel out of the country for better work opportunities. So in the end, the actual number of doctors in Pakistan which are practicing are only 90,000. That means that we have one doctor for 1,700 people in the country, where WHO says that you need to have at least one doctor for 1,000 people in the country. So this is absolute. This is an absolute urgency that we need to focus on. But when there is so much chaos, I think there's also a brink of opportunity. And for us, that brink of opportunity is that where 500,000 people in Pakistan, half of the population of the country never accesses healthcare. Almost half of the population, 85 million people in Pakistan, have smartphones or can access technology. So we can believe that using technology can be a bridge between so many doctors who are not being able to work to their full potential to patients who are placed anywhere in Pakistan and other regions of the world where access is an issue, using the bridge of technology. And the technology that we use to do that is telemedicine. So we connect a group of underutilized, untapped, large pool of female doctors to patients who need healthcare using a telemedicine-based platform, which is both a web-based as well as a mobile-based platform. And I started my journey as a clinical doctor trying to solve the problem that I saw in female doctors not working as well as patients not getting access to healthcare for the most underserved. So when we started making chains of clinics in low-income communities where we utilized nurses who were already working in those communities for the last 6 or 7 years. We upgraded their clinics. We provided them with a telemedicine platform so that whenever a patient comes to their clinic, they can then connect the patient to an online doctor. And that online doctor can be placed anywhere in the world. But we later realized that only making clinics or making physical clinics where telemedicine can happen will not solve problems for 200 million people. So we then ventured creating into a mobile application that allows any person having a smartphone to connect to a doctor in less than 60 seconds. That's instant consultation with a doctor wherever you are, having a mobile phone and internet technology. So right now we have two main products that we use. First is based in low-income communities, which are our traditional clinics, upgraded into telemedicine clinics. And for smartphone users, we have a mobile-based application. So what are the services that we provide in our clinics and on our mobile app? We provide access to general physicians, we provide access to specialists, and we also provide access to mental health specialists. We maintain history for all patients in electronic EMR, and every patient gets a verified e-prescription from the doctor. We also provide different value-add services in our clinics as well as on the app. So in our clinics, the patient can access lab referrals, they can get an ultrasound done once a week, and they can be referred to tertiary care if they cannot be seen through telemedicine in case of emergencies. On the mobile application, when a doctor sees you and gives you a prescription, we can send your medicine and your lab at home using our partner services. So this is just a visual representation of what a journey of a patient in a clinic is, because I can't take you there. But it's absolutely beautiful that in a small community away from the hustle bustle of the city, there's this green and pink, which is upgraded as compared to the other structures in the community, where there's a nurse sitting who connects the patient to the online doctor. The patient accesses value-add services in the clinic as well. And if need be, they can be referred to a tertiary care center. If the patient has come after working hours, they can connect to a 24/7 nurse-guided helpline that can help them in case of emergency. Whereas on the mobile application, if the patient is using their mobile app themselves, they can just go to the application, download the app. They'll see a list of doctors available in that time for a consultation or by appointment. They can just pay for the consultation and get a consultation in less than 60 seconds. They can maintain their health records, they can get a prescription, and they will get a follow-up reminder before their next consultation. The patient can either pay themselves, or if they have a corporate using our application, the corporate can also pay us for that consultation through a subscription-based plan. So unlike other companies or unlike other social impact organizations in Pakistan who are generally non-for-profit or generally non-revenue based, we are a for-profit telemedicine social impact organization. And we pride ourselves to be that. So we charge in our clinics as well as on our mobile application. In the clinics, we charge between $0.5 to $3 for a range of services. On our mobile application, we either charge the user in a corporate plan in which their corporate pays, or they can use the app themselves through a retail app that we have, in which they can pay per consultation and per subscription plan. On our app, we pay 60% of each consultation to the doctor, and 40% is our revenue. On a clinic, we hire doctors on a salary basis. Up till now, we've been able to create a network of 1,500 doctors. These doctors range from doctors who are present within Pakistan and outside Pakistan as well, because a lot of female doctors who want to work in Pakistan are often not able to do so because they're outside Pakistan and not being able to give that time to work. So surprisingly, all the late night shifts in our clinics and on the mobile app are seen by doctors who are placed globally outside Pakistan in US or Canada. All our doctors are PMDC verified. And as and when need be, we pick out doctors from this network and employ them on our app as well as in our clinics. But however, what happens to the rest of the doctors? For them, we've created what we call the learning management system of Sehat Kahani. That when a doctor comes back from a break, a lot of people ask me, how do they do the diagnosis? How do they learn? Unko to usko sab bhul gayi hongi, unko to kuch aata hi nahi hoga. So we've created a learning management system in which they can take courses, 12 courses that we've created on primary healthcare, as well as CMEs that we do in our company, and they can make themselves up to date with the recent medical knowledge. They then can take their self-assessments, and then they're interviewed by a quality assurance manager before placing them into the clinics on the app. This ensures that all the doctors who are joining the Sehat Kahani network have the same amount of knowledge, or at least a basic amount of knowledge when they start on the platform. So what have we done so far? We've been in work, we've been on ground since 3 years. We started with a chain of clinics, and we have 27 clinics across Pakistan. We have clinics in Sindh, we have clinics in rural Punjab, we have clinics in KP, and this year we're starting in Balochistan as well. We have seen almost 200,000 patients via telemedicine in our clinics in the last 3 years. When we started, we used to get 1 patient a day, or not even 1 patient a day in our clinics, or 50 to 60 patients in a month. Now our average patient load in a clinic is 450 patients a month. That means 20 patients a day get access to a qualified female doctor online. We've also done a lot of health education and promotion activities in our clinics to make sure we get the woman in, we get the woman to trust us. So we've impacted over 1 million lives through our health education and promotion initiatives in the clinics. Our app, which is fairly recent, but got extremely picked up in COVID because of the lockdown. So we've launched our app 6 months before, but we've done almost 100,000 consultations on our app, and we have 43 corporate partners who use our app for all their employees. In COVID lockdown, we experimented all our energies in making sure our application was available to everyone in Pakistan whenever they needed. So we partnered with the government of Pakistan, and we made our app free for 6 months from March to August for anyone who wanted to use it for COVID and non-COVID related issues. And we did 65,000 consultations on our platform then, which were done from cities all over Pakistan, from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd tier cities. Some of the basic things that we saw in COVID lockdown was we saw patients with lifestyle-related diseases, gynecology-related diseases, respiratory-related diseases, dental-related diseases. So we saw that a lot of patients needed a doctor for COVID issues, but there are a lot of patients who also abstained from talking to their doctor in physical localities, and they turned to the app to get consultations from online doctors in this time, clearly showing that if you create a case of telemedicine in a country like Pakistan, people will use it. I'm very proud to say that all of our total consultations in our clinics, almost 75% have been done by women, and 25% of those have been done on SRH issues, that are sexual and reproductive healthcare issues. And majorly, we get patients who are between 16 to 45 years of age. On our app, almost 30% of our consultations are done by women, and 42% of them on SRH services, which shows that telemedicine can be a safe space where women feel comfortable talking about their sexual and health reproductive issues, which they maybe can't do in COVID lockdown and other localities. We've also done something interesting related to gynecology and related to post-abortive care, which is another taboo subject in Pakistan. So there are categories of lady health workers that have been trained all across the government to talk about family planning. And the recent surveys detect that family planning compliance went down in COVID times because women could not access their workers, their clinics, their tools and appliances that they use. So we provided our application to lady health workers to connect that lady health worker to a doctor if she's going in a community and she's seeing a patient and she does not know how to counsel that patient. She would then connect the patient to an online doctor. And we've done this only 1 month, but we've seen over 135 cases of family planning and post-abortive care getting treated through the mobile app through our gynecologists. So what does all of it does? On our platform, when a patient comes to a Sehat Kahani telemedicine clinic or the app, there's a 50% reduction in their medical expenses. 1 out of 4 patients come for follow-ups on the app, showing that there is attention on the platform, showing people's interest. But doctors also earn 1 times more than traditional practice because it's a flexible platform. You can log in as many times, create your own rota, see as many patients as you want in a time where you feel comfortable. We also have managed to gather a lot. We also have managed to lobby a lot for telemedicine in Pakistan, because one very big question that we ask is, where is the regulation? Who allows it? So we've managed to get partnerships with the federal government as well as the Sindh government to make sure that telemedicine is embedded at some level in their work so that we can work towards a framework and a policy. We've created the first accredited telemedicine course for doctors with Zaudi University. And we've also managed to create a subcommittee at the PMDC, now PMC, for telemedicine to make sure that the regulators also have a role in seeing telemedicine in Pakistan as the next big thing, as the future for healthcare. These are the partners and supporters that we've worked across the board to make sure that we're providing consultations. Our next 2-year plan is to make sure that we induct 5,000 doctors in the workforce, because unless we have a lot of doctors using the application, we can't get enough patients on the platform to get familiar with it. Because when a patient comes on the telemedicine platform, the only thing they want is a doctor to be available and listening to them. So a very ambitious plan is to make sure that at least 2.2 million people are using our app and our clinical services in the next 2 years. And we launched 48 clinics across Pakistan in regions where app cannot work due to lack of internet connectivity or smartphone coverage by people. And the long-term vision, and this is somewhere where I will second Dr. Naila, is that for me, healthcare is something which needs to be proactive rather than reactive. We should be able to change patients' lives and journeys rather than just treating them. So I'll share a little story about a patient who came on the Sehat Kahani application around a month back. This was a patient, male patient, talking to a female doctor, a GP, on the mobile application. Within 5 questions, because we have a protocol-based management system, the GP was able to recognize that this patient was suicidal. And she referred the patient to a psychiatrist on the mobile application in 1 hour. Within 1 hour, the patient got a consultation by a psychiatrist. She assessed them. She referred them to a tertiary care facility. And then our call center followed up with the patient for 2 days to make sure that the patient is doing okay. So for me, as a telemedicine and digital health enthusiast, fighting for telemedicine's entry into a country like Pakistan, this was a matter of life and death handled by 2 doctors on an application, a digital app, and a call center. And we can just see how it can impact lives in the longer run if we are able to introduce this practice in our traditional healthcare in our country and beyond. So a very ambitious vision is to bring back 50,000 female doctors back into the workforce and impact 25 million lives. And also take this platform and license it to other countries where there's a similar access issue, for example, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Philippines. We can take this platform and make sure that our doctors are also helping those economies provide healthcare. And lastly, we are very much into making sure that whatever we are doing on our app should be proactive. So if there's a diabetic patient coming on our app for more than 5-6 times, the app should be able to tell them that this is the test you need to get done. This is a follow-up you need. This is something that you should be eating or not eating. And this is all doable very easily if you have data of the patient in your hand and you have good machine learning and AI technology embedded into it. I just want to mention a little bit of my team. Because of them, we are here. So the company is created by me and my co-founder. We both are medical doctors by profession. We both are public healthcare specialists. This is a team at the background who makes sure that we have everything in order on the mobile app and the clinic side. But I just want to end my presentation and talking to all the doctors who are attending that the future of telemedicine in Pakistan cannot happen until doctors become a part of this revolution, until doctors adapt to this technology, test it. The doctors who come to our platform, whether they are at home or they're working full time or they're working part time, they're always hesitant to try the technology because it is so new. But as they try it, they find it that this is an ideal platform for them to engage with their patients, talk to them, make extra money, and become a virtual brand. So the opportunities for doctors are massive. You can create your own timings on a telemedicine clinic. You can connect to more patients doing your clinics virtually. You become a virtual brand. You can earn much more as compared to a traditional setting because you can work more and see more patients from wherever you are. You can be involved in so many research opportunities, new research opportunities on telemedicine available. And you can access so many trainings if you become part of any community on telemedicine, such as Sehat Kahani, or as Dr. Naila mentioned. But the opportunities to learn, to engage are huge. And it's only when we create our own barriers, if we can't do it, is when we stop ourselves from getting the maximum potential with ourselves as doctors. So I will urge you at the end of this presentation to try it, to test it, because you will see that patients who are placed in communities where doctors are not available, when they find a doctor talking to them on a video screen, for them it's very interesting, it's very exciting. And at the end of the day, what matters in healthcare is, and I'm sure all the doctors watching this today will agree to me, the ultimate end goal is how much time, how much care, how much compassion you have for the patient, and how are you solving their issue. Whether it's done physically or it's done on a telemedicine platform, that is what matters at the end of the day for the patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. I think there is an issue with the video as again at my end. So, however, listening to you was an opportunity once again, especially when you spoke about the bigger picture. I really liked how the medical expenses at the patients end they decreased by 50%, at the same time increasing the revenue and benefits for the healthcare community and making it a win-win situation. The next thing you spoke about is that the future needs more and more doctors who will become more comfortable with telemedicine, the more better picture we will have for this platform for both patients and doctors. And then the enlisting the endless opportunities for the healthcare physicians and patients, and also that doctors from Pakistan can be a value addition to a MENA region and international region as well. So scaling up the telemedicine platform of Pakistan to both national and international level, you've got me over there. So this will link up to our last but most important presentation by Mr. Abid Zubairi, who is the CEO and co-founder of OlaDoc, one of the few authentic telemedicine platforms in Pakistan. Abid is having diverse commercial professional experience, and he has been associated with corporate giants like Nestle, Coca-Cola, and BlackBerry before starting OlaDoc. OlaDoc was founded in 2016, and he has been leading the organization as its CEO since then. Abid will be speaking about telemedicine and future in Pakistan. So over to you, Abid.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, and we can see you, and we can see your presentation.
Perfect. Excellent. My apologies for the technical glitch. Firstly, thank you very much for the whole Abid team and Saad in particular for inviting me to be part of this talk. मैं आजकल leave पर हूँ, घर पर हूँ, लेकिन Saad really wanted to be part of it, and I said why not? So thank you very much. हमारी जो talk है अभी I'll just take 5 to 10 minutes. It won't be very long. And I'll basically talk about 2 areas. Number 1, कि हमें ये देखना है कि क्या telemedicine کیا یہ فیشن ہے, کیا یہ آج کل کرونا کی وجہ سے کچھ 2-3 مہینوں کا ٹرینڈ ہے جو پاکستان میں آ گیا ہے, اور اس کے بعد کیا زندگی اور چیزیں ایوری تھنگ از گوئنگ بیک ٹو نارمل, یا از اٹ سم تھنگ دیٹ از اباؤٹ ٹو اسٹے ہیئر. So this is something that we'll talk about. This is the second half of the presentation. اور اس سے پہلے ہم تھوڑا سا ذکر کریں گے about Holadoc. I'll just like 5 minutes to quickly introduce you guys to the platform as well and talk about how and what we are doing with respect to improving the overall healthcare ecosystem in Pakistan. So first things firstly, اگر ہم Holadoc کو دیکھیں تو it's basically a doctor booking and e-consultation platform. یعنی کہ ہمارے تھرو آپ یا تو ایک نارمل فزیکل کنسلٹیشن تو کر ہی سکتے ہیں, یعنی اگر ایک پیشنٹ کسی ڈاکٹر سے کسی ہسپتال میں فزیکلی جا کر ملنا چاہتے ہیں اور انہیں دکھانا چاہتے ہیں تو وہ پاسبل ہے. لیکن اس کے علاوہ ہمارے پاس ایک ویڈیو کنسلٹیشن کا بھی پلیٹ فارم ہے, یعنی آپ کسی بھی ڈاکٹر سے ویڈیو کے تھرو یعنی ٹیلی میڈیسن کے تھرو بھی بات کر سکتے ہیں. اور ہمارا جو کیچ ہے, جو ہم the promise that we have is کہ آپ ایک کسی بھی ڈاکٹر سے in less than 60 seconds یعنی 60 سیکنڈ سے اندر آپ ایک انتہائی آسان طریقے سے اپوائنٹمنٹ بک کر سکتے ہیں. یعنی کہ اس کے لیے بیسک اسٹیپس ہیں جو آپ کو اسکرین پر بھی نظر آ رہے ہیں, جس میں آپ کو بیسیکلی ایک ڈاکٹر کو سرچ کرنا ہے, آپ اسپیشلٹیز کے تھرو سرچ کر سکتے ہیں, آپ ڈاکٹر کو ہر ڈاکٹر سے ایسوسیٹیڈ ان کی ریٹنگس ہیں, ان کی رینکنگس ہیں, ان کا ایکچوئل جنرل پیشنٹ فیڈ بیک ہے جو پہ وہاں پہ ویزیبل ہے, تو آپ اس کے تھرو براؤز کر سکتے ہیں اور پھر اپنا مرضی کا ڈاکٹر چوز کر سکتے ہیں. دین یو کین آلسو چوز کہ آپ نے کیا ان سے ویڈیو کنسلٹیشن کرنی ہے یا میں نے ان سے فزیکل بکنگ کرنی ہے اور میں نے ان سے کلینک میں جا کے ملنا ہے. اس کے علاوہ ہمارا ایک ڈاکٹرس کے لیے ایک پریکٹس مینجمنٹ سولوشن بھی ہے, جس کے تھرو ڈاکٹرس اپنی پریکٹس کو آٹومیٹ کر سکتے ہیں اینڈ ٹو اینڈ. یعنی کہ ابھی آپ جو نارمل پریکٹس ہوتی ہے کہ ہمارے پاس ہر کلینک پر ایک پین اور پیپر ہے جس میں ہم پیشنٹ کا نام نمبر نوٹ کر رہے ہوتے ہیں اور ٹائمنگ نوٹ کر رہے ہوتے ہیں, وہ سارا کا سارا کلینک آپ کو ایک ایپ کے تھرو اویلیبل ہوتا ہے. So this is basically our model. This is how we do it. ہمارا جو فوکس ہے اور بہت زیادہ فوکس ہے وہ ہے 2 چیزوں پر. 1, ہم یہ چاہتے ہیں کہ ہم ہیلتھ کیئر کو ایکسیسیبل, سب سے پہلے تو ہم پیشنٹ کو امپاور کرنا چاہتے ہیں, اور آپ پیشنٹ کو امپاور جب ہی کر سکتے ہیں جب آپ اس کے بھلے کی چیزیں ان تک پہنچانا شروع کریں. تو نمبر 1 ہم چاہتے ہیں کہ ہیلتھ کیئر کو ایکسیسیبل بنائیں. ہمارے تھرو آپ کو 6000 سے زیادہ ڈاکٹرز اویلیبل ہیں فار اینی پیشنٹ which are spread across 10 cities in Pakistan. تو اچھا خاصا ڈاکٹرز کا نیٹ ورک موجود ہے آن دا پلیٹ فارم, اور جو نیٹ ورک موجود ہے وہ بھی اسپریڈ اکراس آل اسپیشلائزیشن. یعنی کہ ایسا نہیں ہے کہ آپ کو گائنیکالوجسٹ کو مل جائیں گے, جنرل فزیشنس کو مل جائیں گے, لیکن آپ کو ریمیٹالوجسٹ مثال کے طور پر پلیٹ فارم پر نہیں ملیں گے. ایسا نہیں ہے. وی ہیو ڈاکٹرز اکراس آل اسپیشلٹیز اینڈ آل ایریاز اویلیبل آن دا پلیٹ فارم. دوسرا بہت امپورٹنٹ اور میجر اینگل ہے ٹرانسپیرنسی کا. اور ٹرانسپیرنسی جو ہے اس کے بارے میں ہم بڑی آج کل بات بھی سنتے ہیں, بڑا چیلنج ہے کیونکہ پاکستان میں بہت سارے کویک پریکٹس کر رہے ہیں. ڈاکٹر ٹو پیشنٹ ریشو آؤٹ ہے, کیونکہ وہ آؤٹ ہے تو کسی بھی انسان کے لیے اپرچونیٹی ہے کہ وہ ایز اے ڈاکٹر ایکٹ کرے, کویک بن جائے اور جا کے ڈاکٹر پیشنٹ کو دیکھنا شروع کر دیں, پیشنٹ کو ویسی لائن, رائٹ. سو اور اس کا بہت برا امپیکٹ ہمارے پیشنٹ پہ بھی پڑتا ہے, رائٹ. سو ایز اے ڈاکٹر ہیلتھ کیئر سروس پرووائڈر ہمارے اوپر بھی اٹ پٹس اے ویری بیڈ نیم وین اے کویک ٹریٹس اے پیشنٹ, بس پیشنٹ کو نہیں پتا کہ بندہ کویک ہے یا نہیں ہے. پیشنٹ ان کے پاس علاج کرانے جاتے ہیں اور جب ان کا ایکسپیرینس اچھا نہیں ہوتا تو آف کورس پیپل ٹاک ٹو پیپل ٹاک, دے اسپریڈ دی ورڈ, دے ٹاک اباؤٹ اٹ وغیرہ وغیرہ, اینڈ آف کورس اٹ پٹس اے اوور آل ویری بیڈ نیم آن دی اوور آل کمیونٹی جو کہ ہمارے ہیلتھ کیئر سروس پرووائڈر ہے. تو دوسرا بڑا امپورٹنٹ اینگل ہے ٹرانسپیرنسی کا. تو آف کورس ہمارے پلیٹ فارم پر سارے ڈاکٹر CMDC ویریفائڈ تو ہیں ہی, لیکن اس کے ساتھ ساتھ ایک اور اینگل بھی ہے, اور وہ یہ ہے کہ ہمارے پاس جتنے ڈاکٹرز ہیں ان کا ہم ایک ٹرانسپیرنسی کا یعنی ریٹنگ اور ریویوز کا بھی میکینزم ہمارے پاس موجود ہے. تو اینی پیشنٹ ہو سیز اے ڈاکٹر, پوسٹ کنسلٹیشن ان سے ہم فیڈ بیک لیں, اور وہ فیڈ بیک ویری کرتے ہیں کئی چیزوں پر. ہم پوچھتے ہیں جی ڈاکٹر صاحب نے آپ کا کیسے چیک اپ کیا, آپ کو زیادہ ویٹ تو نہیں کرنا پڑا, آپ کا ایوریج ویٹ ٹائم کیا تھا, اسٹاف کا بیہیویئر کیسا تھا, کلینک انوائرمنٹ کیسی تھی, کیا صاف ستھرا ہائیجین تھی نہیں تھی, وغیرہ وغیرہ. تو اٹس اے ہول بنچ آف فیکٹرز جو کہ ہم فیڈ بیک سے انکارپوریٹ کیے ہوئے ہیں, اور اس پہ ہم دیکھ رہے ہوتے ہیں کہ ڈاکٹر کا ریٹنگس کیا ہیں, ریویوز کس طرح کے ہیں, وغیرہ وغیرہ. نا واٹ ریلی امپورٹنٹ ہے کہ سارا فیڈ بیک ایک پیشنٹ کو اویلیبل. So when a patient is making a choice and when the patient is booking and choosing کہ اچھا میں ڈاکٹر اے کے پاس جاؤں یا ڈاکٹر ای کے پاس جاؤں, تو ان کے پاس ایک فیڈ بیک کا میکینزم موجود ہے جس کے تھرو بھی وہ ریویوز اور ریٹنگس کو دیکھ کے اپنا ڈیسیزن لے And this is something that goes really, if you ask me कि what is the secret sauce, people often ask me कि यार क्या वजह है कि आपका प्लेटफॉर्म थोड़ा मशहूर हो गया, आप चल पड़े हैं. So one of the things is जो हमें ट्रैक्शन मिल रही है वो ये है कि हमारे पास यूजर इसलिए बार बार आता है बिकॉज दे नो कि प्लेटफॉर्म पे जो फीडबैक मौजूद है वो जेन्युइन है. और यही ट्रांसपेरेंसी जो है ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है किसी भी रिलेशनशिप में, हमारे आम रिलेशनशिप में भी, और स्पेशली व्हेन यू आर सीइंग अ डॉक्टर, बिकॉज दिस इज हाउ यू एसेंशियली एम्पावर द पेशेंट. अगर हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर देखें तो अभी मोर देन 3 लाख वेरीफाइड रिव्यूज हैं. दीज आर रिव्यूज जिसमें पेशेंट ने डिटेल लिखी हुई, मैं गया, ये हुआ, ये नहीं हुआ, ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. तो इस तरह के हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे 3 लाख से ज्यादा पेशेंट रिव्यूज मौजूद हैं. और तीसरा ऑफ कोर्स एक एंगल है कन्वीनियंस का भी, और हम उसके साथ साथ हम ऐड जरूर करते हैं अफोर्डेबिलिटी का भी, बिकॉज अब हम देख ही रहे हैं कि ऑफ कोर्स गिवन द पेंडेमिक, ऑफ कोर्स थोड़ी इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन भी मुल्क की खराब हुई, लेकिन अगर हमें रियली सर्व करना है बॉटम ऑफ द पिरामिड और लोअर एसईसीज में जाकर भी काम करना है, तो हेल्थ केयर को अफोर्डेबल बनाना बहुत जरूरी है. बिकॉज अभी बहुत बड़ा एक गैप है. हम या तो लोग ऐसे लोग देखते हैं जो कि 1500, 2000, 2500 फीस देकर अपनी कंसल्टेशन कर रहे होते हैं, एंड देन देयर आर अदर्स जो कि एक जीपी या क्वैक के पास जा रहे हैं जो 100, 200, 300 रुपए से ज्यादा अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते. एंड केटरिंग टू दैट नीड हमने कई प्रोडक्ट्स अभी रिसेंटली लॉन्च की हैं विच केटर टू द लोअर एसईसी. जिसमें एक का नाम ओला डॉक केयर है, थ्रू विच आप किसी भी कंसल्टेंट से, ऑफ कोर्स हमारे पास एक सर्टेन कंसल्टेंट की रेंज है, दीज आर स्पेशलिस्ट, मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली दीज आर नॉट सीरीज, दीज आर स्पेशलिस्ट जिनका 500 रुपए में अपनी कंसल्टेशन कर सकते हैं. So there are products that we are trying to bring to the market in order to serve the lower SECs, and of course we are getting a pretty decent response as well. Just very quickly मैं थोड़ा सा बात कर दूँ प्रोडक्ट के बारे में कि अभी जो हमारा प्लेटफॉर्म है उसमें क्या क्या फीचर्स अवेलेबल हैं. तो अभी प्लेटफॉर्म को अगर देखें तो ऑफ कोर्स आप एक डॉक्टर के साथ अपॉइंटमेंट बुक कर सकते हैं, वो फिजिकल हो सकता है, वो वीडियो कंसल्टेशन हो सकती है. अपना सारा मेडिकल डेटा, अपने प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, अपना मेडिकल रिकॉर्ड प्लेटफॉर्म में स्टोर कर सकते हैं, और उसके साथ साथ वही अपना डेटा आप डॉक्टर के साथ शेयर भी कर सकते हैं. तो जब आप एक डिजिटल किस्म की इंटरेक्शन कर रहे होते हैं जिसमें डॉक्टर आपके पास फिजिकली अवेलेबल नहीं है, वो एक वीडियो पे आपके साथ दूसरी तरफ बैठे हुए हैं, तो उसमें बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है कि आप अपने एंड से अपना प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, अपनी मेडिकल हिस्ट्री और सारी चीजें दूसरों तक पहुंचा सकें. राइट, तो उसके लिए हमारा ये फीचर भी है. एंड ऑफ कोर्स उसके अलावा हमारे पास लैब टेस्ट, यानी कि आप एक पेशेंट जाता है और वो लैब टेस्ट या MRI टेस्ट वगैरह बुक कर सकता है. ये भी फीचर हमारे पास प्लेटफॉर्म पर अवेलेबल है. अब मूविंग फॉरवर्ड अगले साल ही हम इंशाल्लाह प्लान कर रहे हैं कि हम ई फार्मेसी बिजनेस में भी आ जाएंगे, यानी कि हमारे थ्रू एक पेशेंट दवा भी खरीद सकेगा, और फिर उसके अलावा बहुत सी प्रोसीजर्स और ट्रीटमेंट्स होते हैं जो कि आपको कराने होते हैं. कभी नी रिप्लेसमेंट सर्जरी है, लेजिक सर्जरीज हैं, बहुत सी कॉस्मेटिक सर्जरीज भी हैं जो कि होती हैं, जिसके लिए पेशेंट्स काफ़ी ज़्यादा सोच कर जाते हैं, जिसमें बहुत ज़्यादा रिसर्च का एंगल मौजूद होता है. तो हमारा प्लान है कि हम उस एरिया के अंदर भी एंटर कर रहे होंगे कमिंग ईयर. So just very quickly, this is where we are at. We are the, as we like to call it, the largest doctor booking platform in Pakistan. We have 6,000 doctors on the platform. हम हर महीने 1 लाख से ज़्यादा अपॉइंटमेंट हमारे पास रोजाना बुक हो रहे होते हैं. हमारा एक कॉल सेंटर भी है. हमारे पास कॉल सेंटर में रोजाना 7 से 8 हज़ार कॉल्स आजकल डेली एवरेज है जो आ रही होती है. तो टन्स एंड टन्स ऑफ ट्रैफिक दैट्स कमिंग टू अस. हमारे अगर आप एसेट्स को देखें तो वो भी काफ़ी स्प्रेड आउट है. तो हमारा एक तो ऑफकोर्स हमारी वेबसाइट है जिसपे हमें हर महीने तकरीबन 1.5 से 2 मिलियन पेज व्यूज आ रहे होते हैं. हमारी ऐप्स हैं जिसकी तकरीबन कंबाइंड डाउनलोड, हमारी जो कंज्यूमर ऐप है जिसका नाम ओला डॉक है, उसकी डाउनलोड तकरीबन 4 लाख से अब ज़्यादा हो चुकी हैं. हमारे पास ऑफकोर्स डॉक्टर्स की भी ऐप है. हमारा हेल्थ ब्लॉग है जिसमें डॉक्टर्स की तरफ से बहुत सा कंटेंट और आर्टिकल मौजूद होते हैं. और सबसे बढ़कर मैं एंड में जिक्र करना चाहूँगा कि हमारा एक फेसबुक कम्युनिटी तो है जिसमें 60,000 से ज़्यादा तकरीबन मेंबर्स हैं अब, और जिसमें हर महीने रोजाना के तौर पर कोई 200 से 300 एडिशनल क्वेरीज आ रही होती हैं. एंड इन विच वी हैव पार्टनर्ड विद अ फ्यू जीपीज, विद अ फ्यू डॉक्टर्स, विद अ फ्यू कंसल्टेंट्स हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर मौजूद है जो कि पेशेंट्स को उससे रिलेटेड गाइड भी कर रहे होते हैं. आखिरी चीज़ों में जरूर ज़्यादा जिसका जिक्र करना चाहूँगा वो है हमारा यूट्यूब चैनल जिस पर हमारे पास 5 लाख से ज़्यादा सब्सक्राइबर्स मौजूद हैं. So it is the largest healthcare related channel in Pakistan, जिसमें सारी की सारी जिसका काम मेजर रोल है हमारा डिजीज अवेयरनेस का. तो इसके थ्रू हम बहुत सा कंटेंट जनरेट कर रहे होते हैं. हर महीने 20-25 वीडियोस आ रही होती हैं. बट ऑल ऑफ दिस कंटेंट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम CMDC वेरीफाइड डॉक्टर्स and people who are consultants and specialists in their field, right? तो बहुत सा कंटेंट यहाँ पे मौजूद है. आप किसी भी बीमारी का जिक्र करेंगे, आप प्रेगनेंसी के फर्स्ट 3 मंथ के बारे में पूछना चाह रहे हैं, आपको पीकॉस का मसला है, आपने री रिप्लेसमेंट सर्जरी करानी है, यू नेम इट वी हैव इट. हर चीज से रिलेटेड बहुत सा कंटेंट मौजूद है जिसमें डॉक्टर वीडियोस पे बड़े आसान जुबान में पेशेंट को गाइड कर रहे हैं कि जो ये मसला है, ये बीमारी है, इससे क्या वजूहात हो सकती हैं, इसकी क्या रीजन हो सकती हैं, एंड मूविंग फॉरवर्ड अगर आपने इससे इलाज भी कराना है तो दीज आर द ऑप्शंस व्हिच आर अवेलेबल. So this is Arji. अब हम second half of the presentation पर आते हैं, and I have just made one slide, but I'll go through this in detail because I feel this is important and especially important for जो हमारी आज audience मौजूद है डॉक्टर हजरात के लिए, because टेलीमेडिसिन के बारे में अक्सर लोगों को बड़ा वो है अभाम है कि शायद ये एक ऐसी चीज है जो एक फैशन है, कुछ अर्से तो रहेगी, लेकिन उसके बाद जैसे जैसे कोरोना खत्म होता जाएगा, जैसे जैसे हमारी लाइफ बैक टू नॉर्मल होती जाएगी, वैसे वैसे थिंग्स विल बिकम अ लॉट बेटर. नॉट बेटर इन द सेंस कि थिंग्स विल गो बैक टू नॉर्मल. हमें चेंज अच्छा नहीं लगता किसी को भी. वी ऑल वांट कि यार जैसे पहले जिंदगी थी बड़ी अच्छी थी, जबरदस्त था, तो हम उसी तरह क्लिनिक में लेकिन प्रैक्टिस करें और उसी तरह जिंदगी चलाएं. बट वी फील वेरी स्ट्रांगली कि पाकिस्तान इज नाउ, अगर हम पाकिस्तान के डेमोग्राफिक्स और नंबर्स को देखें तो कुछ ऐसे स्टैट्स हैं जो हमें गाइड करते हैं, जो हमें बताते हैं कि पाकिस्तान में भी वो चीज़ें होने वाली हैं टेक्नोलॉजी अडॉप्शन के हवाले से जो कि लॉन्ग लास्टिंग. तो सबसे पहले तो हम देखते हैं कि अगर हम पाकिस्तान को देखें तो अभी डिजिटल अडॉप्शन की जो पेस है पाकिस्तान में बहुत तेज है. मेरा पेस से मुतालिक ही है. डिजिटल अडॉप्शन के लिए 2-3 मेजर चीज़ें होती हैं सीधा सीधा जो देखी जाती हैं. आप देखते ही हैं कि अच्छा आपकी कितनी पॉपुलेशन है, उसके बाद इंटरनेट की एक्सेसिबिलिटी, और हम देखते हैं कि अभी तकरीबन 80 मिलियन, तकरीबन 1/3 1/3 ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन हैज एक्सेस टू इंटरनेट, जो कि ब्रॉडबैंड इंटरनेट वगैरह यूज कर सकते हैं. लेकिन जो ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है वो ये है कि ये लोग, ये जो नंबर है ये ग्रो कर रहा है हर महीने डबल डिजिट. हर महीने डबल डिजिट ग्रोथ का मतलब ये है कि अगर इस महीने 100 था तो अगले महीने 10% से ज्यादा ही है, यानी 110 से नंबर पहुंच जाएगा. तो जो ग्रोथ की पेस है डिजिटल अडॉप्शन की, और अगर हम वो देखें पाकिस्तान को और कंपेयर करें अपने रीजन में, साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज में देखें और मुल्कों में देखें, वो टी सी इसके पाकिस्तान बहुत तेजी से ग्रो कर रहे हैं एंड वी आर फार आउट पेसिंग अदर. यानी कि लोग तेजी से मोबाइल यूजेज, मोबाइल इंटरनेट यूजेज, ओवरऑल इंटरनेट यूजेज की तरफ जा रहे हैं, जो कि एक बहुत पॉजिटिव साइन है किसी के लिए. और इसके बहुत फायदे हैं. ऑफकोर्स एक इसका फायदा ये है कि ओवरऑल अगर आप जितने भी डिजिटल बिजनेस देखें तो आप उनमें देखते हैं कि एकदम से उनकी अडॉप्शन में तेजी आ गई. मुझे याद है कि जब मैं 2-3 साल पहले ओला डॉग जब नया नया था, बल्कि बाय देन आई थिंक इट वाज माय डॉक्टर एंड वी यूज्ड टू विजिट डॉक्टर्स, तो हम देखते ये थे कि डॉक्टर से हम जिक्र करते थे, बात करते थे, तो अक्सर बहुत अच्छा फीडबैक नहीं मिलता. बहुत से लोग इंटरेस्टेड नहीं होते थे. वो कहते थे यू नो व्हाट, यार मेरे पास तो अपना वही पुराना मेथड मौजूद है, मेरा पीए भी है, यू नो मेरे पेशेंट इंतजार कर रहे हैं, आई डोंट वांट. लेकिन उसी में मैंने ये देखा कि पिछले 2-3 साल में, 3-4 साल में बहुत मेजर चेंज आया, बिकॉज वी हैड द उबर एंड करीम. और हमने देखा कि फिर हमारी जब डॉक्टर्स से, आप लोगों से जो कन्वर्सेशन थी बहुत चेंज हो गई, बिकॉज पहले तो हमें पता ही नहीं था किस तरह की टेक्नोलॉजीज भी हैं. लेकिन अब हम देखें तो अभी अगर हम ऑडियंस में देखें तो आई अज्यूम 80 to 90% लोगों के पास जरूर उबर या करीम की ऐप उनके स्मार्टफोन में मौजूद होगी, जो कि पहले नहीं होता. इसी तरह हमने देखा कि और ऐप्स भी और टेक्नोलॉजीज भी, अगर मैं सादा जबान में बयान करूँ, फूड पांडा है, एयरलिफ्ट और स्विवल है, जो कि मैथ ट्रांजिट की एप्स हैं. और अब ग्रोसरी का बिजनेस बहुत चल पड़ा है क्योंकि लोगों को बाहर जाने में दिक्कत पेश आती है. कोरोना की वजह से हम जाना नहीं चाहते, इंटरेक्ट नहीं करना चाहते. तो हम देख के रहे हैं कि ये सारे बिजनेसेस बहुत तेजी से ग्रो कर रहे हैं. और इसकी फंडामेंटल रीजन यही है कि हमारे पास इंटरनेट यूजर्स की मकदार में बहुत तेजी से इजाफा हो रहा है. और अगर हम देखें इसी इसको और हम और फैक्टर्स के साथ कपल करें, हम अगर अपने हेल्थ केयर सिस्टम को पाकिस्तान में देखते हैं एज अ सेकंड स्टेप, व्हाट वी सी इज कि हमारे पास जो एचसीपीज हैं, ज्यादातर जो हेल्थ केयर प्रोफेशनल्स हैं वो अर्बन सेंटर्स में. हम ज्यादातर मेजर शहरों में रहना चाहते हैं, छोटे शहरों में डॉक्टर्स की मकदार काफी कम है. और जब ऐसा कोई भी सिनेरियो होता है तो आपको फिर उस नॉन अर्बन पॉपुलेशन, यानी कि वो लोग जो कि मेजर अर्बन सेंटर बड़े बड़े शहरों से दूर हैं, अगर हमने उनको सर्व करना है, उनकी हेल्थ केयर को सर्व करना है, तो उसमें एक मेजर रोल आ जाएगा. बिकॉज हम डॉक्टर साथ हमको वहाँ जा नहीं सकते, उन एरियाज में तो हमारी पहुंच ही नहीं है, हम वहाँ पे रहना भी नहीं चाहते. تو اس میں ایک بہت میجر رول آ جاتا ہے ٹیکنالوجی کا. بس پھر آپ ٹیکنالوجی کے تھرو آل دیز پیپل جو لاہور میں اپنا علاج کرانا آتے ہیں, فار انسٹنس فیصل آباد, گجرانوالہ, کاموکی, ٹنڈالا یا وغیرہ وغیرہ, ان سارے شہروں سے, now all of these people they also have another option which is teleconsultation, جس میں وہ بڑے آرام سے موبائل فون کے تھرو کسی بھی ڈاکٹر کے ساتھ انٹریکٹ کر سکتے ہیں. اور یہ چیز ہم نے بہت زیادہ ایکسپیرینس کی اپنے ایکسپیرینس میں آف دا لاسٹ 3-4 ایئرس. ہم نے دیکھا یہ ہے کہ بہت سے پیشنٹس ہی ہوں کہ وہ آتے ہیں فیصل آباد سے یا سمجھے ملتان سے, کسی نے ٹریول کر آنا ہے ٹو لاہور, وہ 6 سے 7 گھنٹے کا سفر طے کرتے ہیں, وہ پھر ہسپتال آتے ہیں, ہسپتال میں وہ 2 سے 3 گھنٹے گزارتے ہیں, اینڈ دین دے گو بیک ٹو دیئر سٹی. تو اگر آپ دیکھیں کہ ایک ڈاکٹر کو دیکھنے کی ایکسرسائز جو ہے وہ تقریباً پورا دن ایک کمپلیٹ فیملی کا لے جاتے ہیں, کیونکہ جب کوئی آ رہا ہوتا ہے مریض تو اس کے ساتھ ہمارا کلچر ہے, ہم اس کے ساتھ 2-3 رشتے دار بھی ضرور جڑنا چاہتے ہیں, پلس ڈرائیور بھی ہونا ضروری ہے وغیرہ وغیرہ. ان ٹرمز آف کاسٹ بینیفٹ بھی آپ دیکھیں, ان ٹرمز آف ٹائم بینیفٹ دیکھیں تو سگنیفیکینٹ ایڈوانٹیج ہے. نہ ہوا یہ ہے کہ ان ساری پاپولیشن کو, ملتان کے لوگوں کو, گجرانوالہ کے لوگوں کو, ان سب کو ایکسیس نہیں تھا, نہ ہی کبھی چانس ملا تھا ٹیلی کنسلٹیشن یا اس طرح کی ٹیکنالوجیز کو یوز کرنا. لیکن بیکاز آف کووڈ اٹ ہیز چینج اینڈ اٹ ہیز چینج سڈنلی. یعنی کہ وہ چینج ہم ایکسپیکٹ کرتے تھے کہ 5-7 سال میں آئے گا بڑے آرام سے, خراما, وہ چینج ایک دم سے بہت تیزی سے آ گیا. اور ہم نے دیکھا یہ کہ سارے لوگ, ہر کسی کو پتہ چل گیا کہ اچھا یو نو واٹ, اب ایک آن لائن پلیٹ فارم بھی موجود ہیں, اولا ڈاگ بھی ہے, تو صحت کہانی بھی ہے, تو انسٹا کیئر بھی ہے, تو ادر پلیئرس بھی موجود ہیں جن کے تھرو ہم آن لائن جا کر کسی بھی ڈاکٹر سے رابطہ کر سکتے ہیں. اور بیکاز اپنے آپ نے وہ ایکسپیرینس کر لیا ہے, وہ ٹائم سیونگ ایکسپیرینس کر لیا, ہمیں پتا چل گیا کہ ہم یہاں بیٹھ کے 15 منٹ میں کام کر سکتے ہیں جس میں ہمیں پورا دن لگتا تھا. تو اب اس کی اڈاپشن میں بہت ایک دم سے تیزی آ رہی ہے پوسٹ کووڈ کی, اور ہمارے نمبر بھی ہمیں یہی شو کرتے ہیں. تیسرا ہے جو کہ میں کچھ کمپیریزن ڈرا کرنا چاہوں گا بٹوین پاکستان اینڈ اے فیو ادر مارکیٹ. اگر ایک تو ہم آف کورس پاکستان ہے تو ہم انڈیا سے کمپیریزن کے بغیر تو ہمارا گزارا ہی نہیں. سب سے پہلے تو انڈیا, اور پھر ہم انڈیا کے علاوہ بھی اگر ہم کچھ اور مارکیٹس کو دیکھیں, ہم سے ایک زیادہ پاپولر کنٹری ہے, پاپولر کنٹری ہے انڈونیشیا. پاکستان 5th لارجسٹ پاپولیشن ہے دنیا میں, انڈونیشیا 4th لارجسٹ ہے. انڈونیشیا میں تقریباً 28 کروڑ کی آبادی ہے, پاکستان 21-22 کروڑ پر ہے. تو ہم اگر پاکستان کو کمپیئر کرتے ہیں ود انڈیا اینڈ انڈونیشیا تو ہمیں نظر آتا ہے کہ وہاں کے جو انڈیکیٹرز ہیں, جو نمبرز ہیں 5-6-7-8 سال پہلے, وہ بہت ہی سملر ہے ٹو پاکستان کے جو آج کل. یعنی کہ وہاں پہ بھی ڈاکٹر کی پینیٹریشن بہت لو ہے. یعنی کہ جس طرح ابھی پہلے بھی ذکر ہوا ڈاکٹر سارا نے کیا کہ 1:1700 کا ریشو ہے. انڈیا ہیز ویری سملر نمبرز, ہیڈ ویری سملر نمبرز. انڈونیشیا میں بھی اسی طرح کے چیلنجز موجود تھا 7-8 سال پہلے. اسی طرح دونوں ملکوں میں کورونا میں تو آف کورس بہت تیزی آ گئی, لیکن یہ دونوں ملک اگر اٹ ول بی فیئر ٹو سے کہ ہم تو کوئی 7-8-10 سال تھوڑا سا آگے ہیں ٹیکنالوجی اڈاپشن میں بھی, ترقی کے لحاظ سے بھی وغیرہ وغیرہ. تو اب دیکھتے یہ ہیں کہ انڈیا اور انڈونیشیا دونوں میں جو ڈیجیٹل اڈاپشن تھی وہ ہماری ہی طرح ڈبل ڈیجٹ میں گرو کر رہی تھی, اور تقریباً 1/3 پاپولیشن واز آن ڈیجیٹل پلیٹ فارم. تقریباً اگر ہم دیکھیں 5 سے 6 سال پہلے کی کہانی, تو اگین ویری سملر ٹو پاکستان, رائٹ. اور وہی جو میں ابھی ڈیجیٹل پینیٹریشن کا نمبر ڈسکس کر رہا تھا وہ یہ ہے کہ پاکستان میں تقریباً 35% لوگ ہیں جو کہ اسمارٹ فون یوزر ہیں آج. انڈونیشیا میں بھی یہ نمبر 7 سال پہلے ٹو بی ایگزیکٹ, ٹو بی پریسائز 7 سال پہلے 32% تھا. اور اب اگر ہم اس نمبر کو انڈونیشیا میں دیکھتے ہیں تو تقریباً 70% ہے, یعنی 1.3x وہ گرو کر چکے ہیں ورسز دیٹ نمبر. اس کا مطلب یہ ہے, باٹم لائن یہ ہے کہ تقریباً 70% آبادی وہاں پہ اگر ہم جائیں تو وہ ڈیجیٹلی سیوی ہے, ڈیجیٹلی ایکٹیو ہے, ان کے پاس انٹرنیٹ ایکسیس ہے, یا وہ فون پہ انٹرنیٹ یوز کرتے ہیں یا وہ براڈ بینڈ انٹرنیٹ یوز کرتے ہیں. ناؤ اگر آپ یہی چیز پاکستان پہ حاوی کر دیں اور انہی نمبر کو ہم پاکستان کے پرسپیکٹو سے دیکھیں, تو اگر ہم اگلے 7-8 سال میں ہماری پاپولیشن تقریباً 70% اگر انٹرنیٹ پر آ رہی ہے, ٹیکنالوجی یوزز پر آ رہی ہے, تو آپ امیجن کر سکتے ہیں کتنے زیادہ لوگ ٹیلی میڈیسن کی طرف یا اور اس طرح کی ٹیکنالوجیز کی طرف جا چکے ہوں. So again, just to summarize, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the trend, if you compare ourselves to other markets like Indonesia and India, ہر چیز ایک ہی طرف ہمیں پوائنٹ کرتی ہے, اور وہ یہ ہے کہ پاکستان میں ٹیلی میڈیسن از سم تھنگ دیٹ از ہیئر ٹو اسٹے. کورونا کی سیکنڈ ویو آئے یا نہ آئے, آنے والی ہے, بائی دا وے ہمیں پتہ ہے سب کو, لیکن اس کے بعد تھرڈ ویو آئے یا نہ آئے, irrespective, this is a technology that people that has so many advantages to offer, and it offers such ease to consumers that this is here to stay. This is it from my end. बहुत shukriya again for your time. Thank you very much for being a very patient audience. And of course, if anyone is interested in understanding a little more about Polar Dog, in getting to know about us and how we can help you to provide better quality care to your patients, of course, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abid. It was really a very nice session, and I really wanted to know about Ola Doc always, and your talk has been instrumental in like clearing my thoughts about the platform. So this was our last talk, and which moves us to the question and answer session. I would like to start with a very positive and a very encouraging comment by one of our key opinion leaders, Professor Dr. Sadia Sinpal. Thank you, Dr. Sadia, for being over here with us as an audience and as an active audience. And we have received your comment that we are all doing brilliantly, and that special thanks, Dr. Sadia has sent her special highs to Dr. Naila, and that she's looking forward to more opportunities to work on this platform with her. So bringing to the questions, there is so I'll go one by one in the order as the sessions were conducted. So our first question is to Dr. Azra, that any challenge that you see for online consultation compared to physical and on-site consultation if in the future of telemedicine. So, Dr. Azra, if you can kindly comment on this question.
So, if I understand you correctly, you comparing face-to-face consultations with an online consultation.
Yeah, so would you like to throw some light on what are the challenges you as healthcare physicians see that a doctor can face or a patient can face? So both at both levels, what are the challenges you foresee in practicing of telemedicine as compared to face-to-face?
Well, you know, we are that generation of doctors, and so are you, and so are until very recently, we all have been trained with, जो typical पहले history ली, फिर examine किया, फिर investigations की, फिर management plan किया. So, history तो आप ले लेंगे, but you can't examine, और फिर क्योंकि आप history से, और अगर उनके कोई tests हुए हैं, उनको देख के you coming to a diagnosis, because and there are limitations अगर आप physical examination नहीं कर पाते. So इसको डॉक्टर को भी समझना बहुत जरूरी है, और इसको जो लोग कॉल कर रहे हैं उनको भी समझना बहुत जरूरी है. So of course limitations हैं और गलतियां हो सकती हैं, and I think disclaimer देने की बहुत जरूरत है कि it is not as good as face to face consultation. But जैसे ये अभी आबिद बता रहे थे, हमारे मुल्क में इतने सारे क्वैक्स हैं जो डॉक्टर्स की तरह पोज करते हैं. सो उन क्वैक्स से तो 100 गुना 1000 गुना बेहतर टेली कंसल्टेशन पे उनको एडवाइस मिल जाएगी. एंड so of course limitations हैं. It can't be as good as a face to face consultation. Physical visit तो नहीं होगी, but आप बहुत तक सही मशवरा, और a medical consultation is not only about writing a good prescription and planning a good surgery or doing a good surgery. There is a lot to what is called as what is counseling, and which is looking after the emotional and psychological aspects of any issue. तो आप वो आपकी बातचीत से, आपकी communication skills से, आपकी in-depth knowledge से, and how you communicate it to the caller is very important. And half your job is done अगर आपने patient को ये satisfy कर दिया कि वो जिससे बात करे वो उनकी सुन तो रहे हैं. अक्सर पेशेंट्स को ये तकलीफ होती है, वो ये कहते हैं डॉक्टर ने तो हमें 2 मिनट में फारिग कर दिया, میری بات بھی نہیں سنی. جب میری بات نہیں سنی تو وہ میرا علاج کیا کریں گے؟ تو ڈاکٹرز کی تعریف میں بھی یہی امپورٹنٹ بات سب سے پہلے پیشنٹس بول رہے ہوتے ہیں کہ اس نے میری غور سے بات, اگر نہیں پسند آتا تو یہ بھی بولتے مجھے ٹائم نہیں دیا, میری بات نہیں, اس نے تو 10 لوگ کھڑی کیے. پرائیویسی کے بھی ایشوز ہوتے ہیں, خاص کر ہمارے پبلک ہاسپٹل کہ 10 لوگ سن رہے ہوتے ہیں اور ایک سے بات ہو رہی ہوتی ہے. سو یہاں پہ پرائیویسی بھی ایڈریس ہو سکتی ہے کہ اگر آپ کی 1:1 کنسلٹیشن ہو رہی ہے اور تفصیل میں آپ بتا رہے ہیں. سو بہت کچھ اس کے فائدے ہیں اور بہت کچھ اس کی لمیٹیشنز بھی ہیں. بٹ آئی تھنک کمیونیکیشن اسکل از دا نیم آف دا گیم, اینڈ آپ کی ظاہر ہے دیٹ کمیونیکیشن بیسڈ آن یور نالج آلسو. So if you have a sound knowledge and a good communication skill, I'm sure you will be able to guide the person quite well and find a solution in most of the cases.
Thank you, Dr. Raja. My next question is to Dr. Naila. So, Dr. Naila, do you see the trend of online consultations in United Kingdom to continue post-COVID as well? And would you like to share if there are any guidelines in UK for telemedicine?
Thank you so much, Beta. The question is very valid. So telemedicine, like our previous speakers have been saying, that, it has been there since 1800, really. If you look at the evolution of telemedicine since the time that, the telephone and the concept of remote communication. So since then, and cardiologists have been leading this a lot. So you find, if you do a literature search in PubMed, you'll find papers written that in 1950s, cardiologists were the ones who did telecardiology. So teleradiology and telecardiology have been there for a very long time. Now, what has happened in the UK with the COVID-19 pandemic is that there were a lot of skeptics, like there are all over the world. And within a week, we have seen, such a big change because there was no other option. So now, as before, there was reluctance because there was no case study. There was no proof of concept. And when pandemic came, when COVID came, there was no other option. And hence it has now totally embedded, and we've seen the benefits. I was looking for a slide that I wanted to show you because I'm in cancer, and in cancer we have the 2-week pathway in the UK, which means that any GP who feels that there is a risk of cancer will refer the patient on this pathway. And then the patient is referred and triaged in the hospital, then goes through diagnostics, then goes through the the first face-to-face consultation, which will either be an outpatient hysteroscopy if the patient is coming for PMB, or it may be in the rapid access. We call it the rapid access clinic because it is within 2 weeks of the referral. And then the patient has the surgery or whatever, or the MDT discussion. From MDT goes to tertiary care hospital if it is an advanced. So this is all a structured pathway. So there was a slide that I showed that on that pathway, the patient journey used to be about 6 direct contacts. At 6 points, the patient would be in a face-to-face contact. That has now been cut to 2. Everything else is telemedicine. So the only time that the patient has face-to-face is when they come for an examination. And I cannot emphasize it enough that patient examination is so important. With technology, we are not going to get rid of that. We may have technology that will help us in assessing the patient. For example, CTG, cardiotocograph. In my mother's time, there was no such thing. It was the Pinards, right? But now we cannot think about, I don't know whether it is established in Pakistan or not. I've been out for 30 years. But CTG is something which is basic. The electrocardiogram, ECG, this is all technology, right? We cannot practice without that. So similarly, telehealth and telemedicine now are here to stay, and they will, be used where it is indicated. With regards to regulation, all the Royal Colleges have given their, their guidelines, which patient should be seen in what context through telemedicine, telehealth. So as far as national regulation. The General Medical Council is the regulatory body. They've given regulations. In America, there's a board certification that has come out, which I'm doing. So basically, what it means is that there is an acknowledgement that people are trained to practice telemedicine through telehealth. So that's where we are. I'm looking forward to the day where WHO or some world organization says, this is the accreditation which everyone has to do. And similarly, like in medicine, I was saying to Saad yesterday when we were talking that in UK, we have mandatory training every year on things like fire training. I mean, fire training, everyone knows, but why do we have this mandatory training every year? Is to emphasize the importance. Appraisals every year. Similarly, we should have a system where there is regulation that you get accredited. And then on a yearly basis, there should be some system that keeps us up to date as well. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Naila. So the next question is to Dr. Sara. That do you feel that with telemedicine you can reach out to population where healthcare access is limited? Are there any social limitations? And Dr. Yasin has asked that how can she join your platform?
Thank you so much. I think a very relevant question. And yes, there are so many people in Pakistan who can access smartphones, who have internet technology, and that's almost half of the population. It's actually 40%. But then there are 60% people in Pakistan who still do not have access to smartphones. A सबसे important चीज़ है कि इसमें से major तादाद ख़वातीन की है. A lot of women in families never get access to that one phone that a male member in the family has. So for a woman to get access to healthcare in Pakistan, out of that 60% is even more difficult. So what can we do? In ideal situations, government setups should be able to cater to these populations where smartphone access is not there, and the primary healthcare system in Pakistan is created in such a way where there are basic health units available for patients to go to and get consultations from doctors. But unfortunately, we find that a lot of basic health units do not have doctors available and have midwives or technicians or dispensers, which again is due to the shortage of working doctors in Pakistan, as Abid and I both have said in our presentations. So, दो तीन तरीके हैं इस population को loop में लाने के लिए. The first is, as we work right now with private providers to work with existing nurses, क्योंकि हम बहुत heavily discount करते हैं the power of health workers in Pakistan. We have not yet recognized their true potential. They are available everywhere. They have access to communities. They are trusted by the village members. They're trusted by women in communities. And we still want them to do a very traditional role, कि counseling कर दी, दवाई दे दी, पर्चा fill कर लिया. They all have access to smartphones now because they all have to enter their data into an HMI system that is followed across Pakistan at a provincial and federal level. Why can't all those lady health workers can have a phone in their hands and they can connect the patient to a doctor? Something that we have piloted with one organization in Pakistan. I think it has huge potential. 9,000 lady health workers in Pakistan में community midwives हैं जो अपने clinics को telemedicine centers बना सकती हैं, जो अपने phone को telemedicine clinic बना सकती हैं, और उन सब लोगों को जिनके पास phone नहीं है या इतनी ability नहीं है कि वो खुद बात कर सकें, उनको connect कर सकती हैं. The second way is, and we can't discount this, is using our mobile phones as helplines. So जहाँ पर जो लोग पाकिस्तान में हमारी ऐप को नहीं एक्सेस कर पाते, उनके लिए हमने एक 24/7 हेल्पलाइन बनाई है, which is first the call is taken by a nurse and she triages and then connects appropriate query to a doctor who's available 24/7. And I think एक hybrid model जिसमें कहीं आप brick and mortar clinics बनाएंगे for extremely low income communities, for people who either don't have access to smartphones or prefer traditional methods of care, वहाँ पे आपको वो brick and mortar clinics को convert करना पड़ेगा into telemedicine clinics, which I feel is the easiest thing to do. जहाँ पर आप लोगों को स्मार्टफोन दे सकते हैं, because we believe, हम समझते हैं कि पाकिस्तानी populations who have smartphones are maybe not literate enough or tech savvy enough to enjoy a telemedicine consultations. I find that completely false. I believe that second tier, third tier cities are much more easy fruits for telemedicine consultation converts because they have smartphones, they have internet in their hands, they know how to use it. But unki community mein, unke major शहरों में भी doctors या specialists available नहीं होते. So we can convert those people in the net to telemedicine consultations. And lastly, for those people who don't have access to smartphones and can't come to a clinic, you can use a traditional helpline and you can build it in a manner that it's useful for patients. And by no means it is an alternative to a physical consultation. But जहाँ पर बात होती है 100 million लोगों की कि जिनको पाकिस्तान में कभी डॉक्टर का एक्सेस नहीं मिलता, I think for countries like Pakistan, who have such a big population and lack of doctors, this might be the most cost-effective, easy solution for patients to reach out to doctors as compared to quacks who then ill-treat them and give them medicines and make them antibiotic resistant and so on and so forth. So that's how you can connect a large population using various products to make sure everyone is accommodated in their communities or through the best method of care that is available for them. जहाँ तक बात है हमारे नेटवर्क में आने की, I'm writing an email address here. It's recruitment@sehatkahani.com. Once you email, you can, if you want to be a part of the network, all the doctors in the platform, you can just email us your resume. Our team member will reach out to you. She will first make you a part of the learning management system and then do an interview for you to be a part of the official platform as well. But if you want to join us, we're happy to accommodate as many doctors as we can because it's an open platform like Uber and Careem. Hum doctors usme induct karte hain and the doctors can create their own virtual clinics and timings. And of course, we have some compliance rules that the doctors have to follow. It's a very flexible platform and a secure platform for doctors to join. So I'll just write my email here and you can get in touch.
Thank you, Sarah. And my last question to Abid now. Abid, the question is that how smooth e-commerce platforms are in Pakistan? And there is another question for you, that what precautions are you taking to make sure that doctors are PMDC authentic? Do you verify it through PMDC? And is there any medical legal issues you have yet faced in your platform?
Quickly unmute myself. So as far as, I'll take the second one first, as far as ensuring that we do not have any quacks on the platform, which is of course something we are very particular about. So we have this arrangement with PMDC whereby we verify each doctor through PMDC before onboarding them onto the platform. So that's a standard that we have in place, जो कि हर डॉक्टर के लिए हो रहा है. उसके अलावा as I spoke about in the presentation कि हम हर अपॉइंटमेंट पे जो कि मटीरियलाइज होता है थ्रू वो लगाओ, उस पर पेशेंट का फीडबैक है. So we go back to them via a digital channel जिसमें वो खुद से आप हमें फीडबैक दे सकते हैं by typing it in, और अगर वो नहीं होता तो हम उन्हें फोन कॉल करते हैं, वो फीडबैक ले रहे होते हैं. तो बहुत से केसेस ऐसे भी होते हैं जहाँ पे हमें कुछ डॉक्टर्स का फीडबैक बहुत अच्छा नहीं मिलता. ऑफ कोर्स उसमें सर्टन चीजें हैं दैट वी कैन लेट गो, बट देयर सर्टन थिंग्स अगर बहुत सीरियस किस्म के इश्यूज हों तो फिर हम ऐसे डॉक्टर्स को भी प्लेटफॉर्म से डीलिस्ट कर देते हैं. एंड अगेन दिस टाइज इन विद द स्ट्रैटेजी ऑफ जस्ट मेकिंग श्योर दैट वी एम्पावर पेशेंट. जितना ज्यादा हम पेशेंट के लिए कर सकते हैं, जितने ट्रांसपेरेंसी क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, जितना ज्यादा ट्रांसपेरेंट सिस्टम क्रिएट कर सकते हैं उतना अच्छा है. So that's the focus. Pertaining to the first question, as far as the e-commerce players are concerned, although I'm not a subject matter specialist, मुझे लेकिन चैलेंज ये लगता है उनकी अडॉप्शन से लेकर कि हमारे पास जो पेमेंट मेथड्स हैं उसमें बहुत चैलेंज है. What we typically see is कि पेमेंट मेथड के पर्सपेक्टिव से कि what call it, अगर हमें किसी भी पेमेंट मेथड को अगर अपने प्लेटफॉर्म में इंटीग्रेट भी करना है फॉर इंस्टेंस, तो वो एक इंतहाई चैलेंजिंग काम है. आपको 3 से 6 महीने लग जाते हैं बैंक के साथ डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करते करते वगैरह वगैरह. उसके बाद भी व्हाट यू जनरली सी इज कि आपका बहुत सा डाउन टाइम होता है. यानी कि अक्सर हम देखते हैं कि डॉक्टर्स जो हैं वो जब आपने वो मेथड को तो लाइव किया हुआ है लेकिन आप फिर भी उसके थ्रू पे नहीं कर पा रहे, एसेंशियली बिकॉज कभी ना कभी वो सिस्टम डाउन है उनका, कभी ना कभी उनकी टेक्नोलॉजी में कोई मसला है, कभी उन्हें मेंटेनेंस करनी है वगैरह वगैरह. तो वी फेस ऑल दीस सॉर्ट्स ऑफ इश्यूज, जिसकी वजह से मुझे लगता है कि डिजिटल अडॉप्शन या ई कॉमर्स प्लेयर्स के बहुत तेजी से ग्रो करने में बहुत मसाइल है. तो because about 70% or in fact I'm wrong, I think it's about 85% of e-commerce transactions are cash on delivery. So जब तक आप cash on delivery के model पे रहते हैं, जब तक उसे scale करना बहुत मुश्किल काम है. So I think that's one of the challenges, and that's, by the way, one of the challenges that we feel as well, we face as well, because हमारे पास भी जो payment methods integrated है, उसमें अक्सर कोई ना कोई issue आया हुआ होता है, and मेरा rough estimate है कि we lose about 30% of our transactions because of issues with these payment methods on the platform.
Abid, thank you for the response. And now moving to the concluding remarks. And for that, I would like to invite Dr. Halima Yasmeen. Professor Dr. Halima Yasmeen is the current head of Department of OBGY Ward 8 at Jinnah Postgraduate Medical Center, Karachi. She has a diverse experience as a consultancy, both private and public sector care centers. She is the current Secretary General of National Society of Obstetrician and Gynecologists, and she has been instrumental in making this partnership work. And she's been active speaker and panelist in various national and international conferences. Also with Aman, she's been instrumental in getting the telemedicine helpline activated during the COVID-19. So, Dr. Halima, would you like to share your views and comments about telemedicine and especially about today's program?
Thank you very much, Sobhita. Let me first congratulate Abbott for having us as partners, and Dr. Azra Hassan especially for narrating so well on all the efforts which have been done as a partner with SOGP as well as Aman. This was her brainchild, and she started saying that we need to have consultants or at least specialist level doctors to cater to the needs of these poor women. And then coming to Dr. Naila Siddiqui, her presentation was very innovative for us. It was an eye-opener. There's so much going on in the world. We feel lagging behind from the Western people. And congratulations to the partners at the national level, Sehat Kahani and Ola Doc. You people are doing a great job. So when the webinar topic was discussed with me and Sobia together, I said, Sobia, we have been discussing over this virtual symposium, which we are going to have on 24th and 25th. This is our first virtual academic activity of SOGP. We do have a national and international personal conference every year, but now this year we can't have it. We can't stop the intellect and academic activities, so let's do it virtually. So all the executive and academic members approved. I'm really grateful to Dr. Razia Korejo and Dr. Sadia Hassan and Dr. Rubina Suhail, who are members of our academic board and executive committee, who helped me to formulate the program for this upcoming virtual webinar. A lot of things were planned. Most of them were about gynae ops. I said, we do need to talk about the telemedicine services as well. And we running our own service with Aman. It was a very good topic for us to consider and talk and share the experiences and see what others are doing. So we have definitely had a width of talk from a lot of people, and everyone explained it so well. I think now a lot of people would have had generated interest in running such services. But me being at a public sector hospital for very long and catering to the needs of poor women of Pakistan, who are the most uncool people to the business oriented and the commercial organizations. But let me tell, even this helpline which we ran on a landline number was not easy for the ones for which we really worry. The smartphone holders are usually the young females. It is very good to have it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I was for it. That's why I brought up this webinar to go on with SOGP. But there are limitations for everything. There are limitations for this thing as well. And there are so many partners coming up. The banking people, the internet, the technology, who will run the systems, how do we manage it? How do we manage the calls? How do we run the trainings? How do we tackle the humane aspect of such services? And how do we tackle the ethical and the boundary thing basically, which is very, very worrisome for us as a Pakistani nation, because we just go limitless and we just start crossing the boundaries when things are given to us. I'm scared that जब भी हम ये शुरू करें कहीं वही ना हो जब पाकिस्तान में इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया ताज़ा ताज़ा शुरू हुआ था कि जहाज गिरा हुआ है और मीडिया के लोग पहिए पकड़ पकड़ के टीवी पे दिखा रहे हैं कि ये वो पहिया है जो उस जहाज का है जिसमें लोग मर गए हैं, आप बताइए अब क्या हो रहा है. सो इट ऑल स्टार्टेड विद सो मच कि उसमें फिर इंसान वो रेटिंग लेने के लिए इंसानी पहलू पीछे ना रह जाए. एसओजीपी का ताल्लुक बहुत ज्यादा इंसानी पहलू से. So hum as healthcare providers, we as national body, we should work that the regulations along with starting such services should come hand in hand. Otherwise, abhi tak hum PMC और PMDC में घिरे हुए हैं. खुदारा एक नया पेंडोरा बॉक्स ना खुल जाए. अल्लाह करे हमारी maturity level attain हो जाए as national leaders, as national professionals, as national health seekers. खुदारा बस हम maturity की तरफ जाएं और इस चीज से मुसीबत में इजाफा ना हो और खुदारा इसका पॉजिटिविटी ही सामने आए. सो विद ऑल दिस आई कांग्रेचुलेट ऑल द पार्टनर्स एंड आई अगेन एंडोर्स कि जो हमारा अपकमिंग कोर्स है मैडम नाइला सिद्दीकी के साथ और एजुकास्ट के साथ एसओजीपी का अबाउट हाउ टू बी अ टेली हेल्थ स्पेशलिस्ट, इट इज डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू आंसर a lot of questions. And this is how we start. We wanted to start with a training course first. We can't just launch things like that. So this is the first step. और बस यही कहना है. और मेरे ख्याल है फिर भी अगर कोई शुक्रिया रह गया हो एबर्ट फार्मा तो काइंडली आप कर दीजिएगा. थैंक यू टू ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स जो हमारे एसओजीपी के मेंबर्स लिंक हुए हुए हैं फॉर दिस इनोवेटिव टाइप ऑफ टॉपिक. आई एम रियली ग्रेटफुल टू ऑल ऑफ देम. Thank you very much again to all the partners, especially Dr. Azra Hassan, for presenting on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Halima. Thank you for your appreciation. And with this, I would like to conclude our session. Thank you for our audience to be patient. It was a long 2-hour session. And Dr. Halima, yes, thank you very much. You and Dr. Hazza have been instrumental in making this partnership work. I know you're now a very expensive and a very busy lady to catch. However, you've been very patient in listening to our ideas whenever we come across for the betterment of patient and healthcare community. And I would like here to thank Dr. Sara and Abid and especially Dr. Naila that she managed her time at this hour when she kind of shared with me that she had to attend her medical responsibility as well. But we are so glad that this partnership worked and we brought some awareness for this telemedicine platforms for Pakistan. With this, I would like to end the session, and once again thank you very much. Take good care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.
Allah.